Once upon a time, in the beautiful but turbulent kingdom of Alakapuri, there lived a Yaksha, an ethereal being who served the king of wealth, Kubra. This Yaksha was not just a loyal servant, but also a devoted husband, deeply in love with his wife. However, fate turned cruel, and the Yaksha's life was suddenly torn apart by a grave mistake. Caught in the midst of his indulgence and negligence toward his duties, the Yaksha incurred the wrath of Kubra. As punishment, he was exiled from his heavenly abode for a year and sent to the earth. It was a gentle afternoon in the lush groves of the Ramagiri Mountains, their peaks veiled in mist, their valleys rich with fragrant flowers. There, among the whispering trees and rustling streams, wandered a Yaksha, a celestial attendant of Kubra, the god of wealth. Exiled from his heavenly abode in Alakapuri, the Yaksha was condemned to spend a year in this forest, separated from his beloved wife. His exile was not due to any great crime, but a minor lapse in his duties that displeased Kubra. Still, the punishment was severe for one whose heart was bound by the deepest love to his spouse. Days passed, and the Yaksha's heart grew heavier with longing, until his soul was filled with nothing but a silent ache for his wife. In his loneliness, he imagined her waiting, looking up at the skies, searching for him in the stars, perhaps wondering if he too thought of her, if he felt the same longing that she did. But what could he do? He was bound to this forest, unable to reach her. As the Yaksha sat by a stream one afternoon, brooding on his fate, he looked up and saw a dark monsoon cloud gathering on the horizon. It was the season of the rains, and clouds drifted freely over the mountains, their shapes changing as they passed. The Yaksha watched the cloud, an idea forming in his mind. He would send this cloud as a messenger to his beloved. A cloud could cross the skies effortlessly, traversing mountains, rivers, and forests, until it reached Alakapuri, carrying his words like drops of rain. With a glimmer of hope, the Yaksha called out to the cloud and spoke, his voice soft with reverence. "O noble cloud," he began, "you drift freely across this vast earth, unburdened by sorrow, untouched by longing. Yet you carry the rains that bring life, and so too, you could carry my message to my beloved in faraway Alakapuri. You are my only hope." The cloud listened as the Yaksha, full of yearning, implored it to take pity on him. He described his journey to Alakapuri, marking each step in his mind as if to feel closer to her, even in imagination. With a deep breath, he began to weave for the cloud a path that would bring it to his beloved. First, the Yaksha said, "Rise from these mountains, the Ramagiri hills. Bear in mind the fragrance of the jasmine flowers here, it is a favorite. Follow the river below, flowing in graceful curves toward the north. You will pass green fields, wild forests, and villages alive with laughter. Pause above them, and gather their beauty in your sight, for these are the lands we knew before I was cast away." The Yaksha's voice grew softer as he described each part of the journey, his words weaving a map of places and memories that would lead the cloud through the heart of India to his beloved in Alakapuri. "You will see the wide plains of the Narmada River," he continued. "Its waters, pure and blue, mirror the sky. Drink deeply of its coolness, for beyond it lies the city of Ujjain. In this city, lovers walk along the riverbanks, and poets sing their praises of longing and desire. Know that once we, too, wandered along those banks, our hands clasped, our hearts as one." As he described Ujjain, the Yaksha's memories grew more vivid. He imagined his wife there, her beauty radiant like the moonlight on the river, her eyes watching the horizon, perhaps sensing his spirit even from this great distance. His words carried the ache of a love withheld, of dreams that could no longer be. The cloud moved onward, and the Yaksha continued, his eyes filled with longing as he spoke. "Beyond Ujjain, you will reach the mountains of the Vindhyas, rising like sentinels in the distance. These peaks guard the secrets of the heavens, and beneath them, the rivers flow in ancient patterns. Cross these mountains, noble cloud, and look down upon the kingdoms they shelter. They will fill you with strength for the last stretch of your journey." As the Yaksha recounted the path, the cloud seemed to grow in stature, as if it had taken on the weight of the Yaksha's message, carrying his longing with it through the skies. At last, the Yaksha whispered, "You will reach the kingdom of Alakapuri, my home. It is a place of unearthly beauty, with gardens that shimmer in the moonlight, where flowers bloom in eternal spring. My beloved will be waiting there, in our garden beside the lotus pond. You will find her in our chamber, her form graceful as the vines that climb the palace walls, her face like a lotus that closes its petals at dusk, waiting for her son." Tears welled in the Yaksha's eyes as he spoke, for he could see her in his mind, the way she had smiled at him before he left, her in gentle hands holding his, her voice filled with promises. And now, separated by cruel fate, he could only hope that the cloud would reach her and speak for him the words he could not say. "When you find her," he continued, his voice choked with emotion, "tell her that I am here, thinking of her every moment, counting the days until I return. Tell her that the world is empty to me without her, that her image alone sustains me. Tell her to look to the sky each evening, for my love rides upon every breeze, just as you carry my message across the heavens." The Yaksha fell silent, his heart both lighter and heavier, as if he had poured his very soul into the words he had given the cloud. He watched as the cloud rose higher into the sky, drifting slowly northward, carrying his message on the winds. For a moment, he felt as if a part of himself was also leaving, journeying toward the woman he loved, spanning the distance between them. As the cloud floated north, it passed over the lands the Yaksha had described, following the path he had drawn in his words. Over rivers and mountains, forests and fields, it traveled, carrying with it the Yaksha's love and longing, invisible yet palpable, like a fragrance carried on the wind. After many days, the cloud at last reached Alakapuri, descending upon the city as dusk fell, bathing the palace gardens in a gentle rain. The Yaksha's wife, who had been waiting by the window of their chamber, felt a strange calm settle over her as the first drops touched her face. She closed her eyes, feeling his presence within the raindrops, as if he had returned to her, as if he stood beside her once more. In her heart, she heard his words, felt his longing, and her own yearning softened into peace, for she knew he had not forgotten her. As the rains passed, a rainbow arched across the sky, a promise that the cloud had kept its word. And though the Yaksha remained in exile, his heart remained bound to his beloved, a bond carried by the cloud that had journeyed across the skies, connecting two souls across the vastness of the world. And so, in the quiet of the Ramagiri hills, the Yaksha sat beneath the open sky, his soul soothed by the knowledge that his love had reached his beloved, borne on the wings of a noble cloud. And though he was bound by the constraints of fate, his love remained free, eternal, a message carried by the very heavens.